everyone, and welcome. Continue in our Maimer Hasidic Discourse Tu B'Shvat, Holiday of Trees, the Rosh Hashanah of trees. So, Adam is a microcosm of the entire world. Person is a microcosm of the entire world. And the fact that there is everything outside of in the world is because there's a piece of that in us, or at least, a concept of it in us. And means in the spiritual is everything. From the spiritual, everything devolves into the physical. So the holidays, Jewish holidays, are celebrated with the end of a season of some produce, because produce, which is physical produce, the Jewish people are called spiritual produce, the original produce. So, bearing that in mind, the fact that we have a season, Pesach, related to, related to grain, is the idea that grain has to do with mitzvahs, the mitzvahs that we have to fulfill. While trees have to do with Torah. As we'll see. We're going to go into that. Trees are like Torah because it's based on the verse in the Torah that says Adam Eitzah, that Adam, right, person, man, is like a tree in the field. And there's many different terms that we use to refer to a person. Adam referring to the intelligence of the individual. Intelligence, well, that has to do with the study of Torah. So, therefore, there is a relationship between the tree. Tree also something that grows tall. Torah is something that grows tall. Through Torah study is where you will have greater growth as an individual. And a tree, if it bears fruit, fruit-bearing tree, that's what we call a scholar. Right, because you could learn, but doesn't mean it's going to bear fruit. Bear fruit doesn't mean you're going to impact another. You yourself might become, will grow as an individual. That doesn't mean that you're going to make an impact through that personal growth in a, I guess, if you will, any growth of a person obviously will have its effect on the environment around you, right? If you were a very angry person and then through your Torah study you grew and you're not so angry anymore, right? So of course that's going to affect the environment, no doubt. But it may not bear fruit, let's say. Okay, let's go deeper into this. That's what we learned previously. So the three holidays and the time of the ripening of the produce is all very precise. It's all precise. Because, why is it precise? Because it's really based on a spiritual counterpart where it devolves from. Just that thought itself is that whatever you see in the physical world really has a spiritual counterpart, and you can understand that spiritual counterpart. It's a whole different, perspective and view. It just so so through the understanding of the produce, the spiritual produce, uh, and its seeding and its growth. So, what is this? So, from the spiritual perspective, seeding is the first thing, right? You do in anything, right? You got to put a seed in the ground, whether it's for a tree, whether it's for wheat, whatever. So, as the verse says, that I have seeded in the land. Well, what do you mean? What does that mean? It's referring to God. How's he seated? Well, because he brings down a soul, right? Which is the spiritual produce from heaven, from above, right? That's seeding. And where does he plant that seed? In a body. A body that has an animal soul. That's in the ground. That's called ground. Right? Further, more details over here. It's even where specifically in the ground, like where is it? In other words, you take a seed, put it in the ground. So the seed is the soul that's coming from above, just like a seed also comes from above, right? It's not in the ground, you put it in the ground. So you take this soul and you put it into a physical body with an animal soul, and specifically you put it in a time of exile, right? It's darker time. Time that can bring you down as earth is heavy. And what's the point? Like, why would God do that? Because the intent is that you're going to come to a greater aliyah, to a greater ascent. Just as you take a seed and put it into the ground, literally, it's in order that there should be growth. And that growth will be a lot more than it was originally. That notion is so powerful because we think that we're a soul that came from heaven and we kind of, we come down here and we struggle and, let us just get back to the Gan Eden. Let us get it back to the way we were in the womb before of heaven. No, we're going to go to a greater place. If so, just stay in the womb. Just stay in heaven. No, coming over here can be much greater. How is that growth? How is that ascend going to happen? What's the tool? What's the vehicle that we will make certain that the seed that's planted in the ground, that my soul that's put into a body, into an animal soul, into in a time of exile, it's through Torah mitzvahs, which is Torah mitzvahs is also called a seed. Think about a seed, I mean, kind of used to it, but like it's kind of pretty awesome. What, a seed? What's there? It's nothing. And a fruit-bearing tree comes from that? Whoa. So here, a soul, right, from above, Torah mitzvahs from above, awesome things come from it. But when it's planted, how's Torah mitzvahs a seed? The seed is this awesome thing that, like, when you think about it, it's like, it really kind of brings out the power of the infinite. That in there, that seed is an entire tree, all those fruits. Wow. That's a heaven. That's like, we take it for granted, but think about it for a moment. That's pretty awesome. But of course, the only way it's going to actualize itself is got to go into the ground. Um, so, so the soul is an awesome thing that comes from above. Torah mitzvahs also comes from above. It's God's thing. So, okay, Torah mitzvahs is God's thing. The neshama, the soul, is a piece of God, right? But of course, that's not sufficient because when it comes down here below, it necessitates avodah, service, right? That seed when you put into the ground, well, there's service that goes into that. There's effort that goes into it. There's work that goes into that. So that means, yes, it's a heavenly thing, Torah mitzvahs, but it necessitates our work down here in the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs and the actualization of it. So, through the fact that a soul comes from above and it's planted into a body, an animal soul down here, especially in a time of gullus, of exile, nonetheless, because we fulfill Torah mitzvahs. But in what manner do we fulfill Torah mitzvahs? Well, think about it for a moment. To till the soil, do whatever you got to make that seed grow. There's an effort that you have to work. You have to go against your nature, right? Our nature isn't like, tilling the soil. Our nature is not to work hard and take a seed and put it to the ground. You got to work. Well, that's called iskafia and isafcha. That means you're bending yourself, working hard, transforming yourself. And because we do that, that's where the growth is going to come. Right. So physically, you got to do that with the ground. I mean, today we got a lot of machinery, I guess, but and maybe it makes it simpler and it makes it easier. I, I don't even know if you don't even need to sit on a tractor trailer anymore. You got all these things that automatically, push a button maybe today. But let's go to the metaphor. Just, as a kid, so we had a little vegetable garden in our backyard for a while. And the reason we didn't have it afterwards, because it was too much effort. Right. But there's an effort that you need to put in order that there's going to be growth. So there's a physical effort that you need to do, and that devolves that concept or from the spiritual effort that's necessary. And that spiritual effort in the growth that we have is that we have to overcome the fact that we have a soul and a body, and that body has its own agenda with the animal soul, and we have to askafia, we have to bend and fight against that in order to have growth. So, but what happens as a result of that? So just like, you got to work, as they say, blood, sweat, and tears to till the soil. So likewise, in the spiritual sense, there'll be a much greater accomplishment that comes that is incomparable to the way this soul was before it came down. Incomparably greater achievement than the soul before it came down. Now, again, what that means is that we're not going back to the womb. We're not going back to Gan Eden, to Garden of Eden. That's not the point, because that means we just came here and, okay, we want to make sure we didn't slip up and we did everything the way we can so we can, go back to the womb of heaven. And no, coming down was for a purpose. The Yerida, the down, the challenge in coming down is in order that we should come to a greater place. A greater place doesn't mean because we achieve something here, so I can get a reward over there and go back to the spiritual womb. No, we're actually in a greater space, place, that here than we would be spiritually before we came down. Now, the truth is, the main growth that happens is not now in our avodah and our divine service. We grow. And that's why we look back, many of you have been learning with me for a while, some for a long time. And you might look back and see, how much did I really grow? Am I a lot more God conscious than I am self conscious? Am I a lot more caring, empathetic, and giving from a God consciousness than I am from just, self-directed self fulfillment? And, and you might say, that, it's been an increase, but not much, not a lot. So the fact that there's an increase in itself is wonderful and great, and so it is necessary. But it isn't going to be, leaps and bounds. It's going to be small and gradual. Where will be the leaps and bounds? Well, the times of Mashiach, right? In particular. But now also we'll have it. And that's the idea of the 3 holidays. And where we're going to go with these 3 holidays in the next class is to show how the holiday, how it follows the agricultural cycle, represents the growth from season to season, that we are capable of being aware and capable of growing, which is amazing. As we said, everything in the physical world and the holidays, and of course anything in Torah that is brought down, it will be a reflection of a very awesome spiritual idea that when we have this understanding will help us grow. So stay tuned as we continue our conversation. Thank you, folks. See you by Chumash Rashi.